Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Richfield Online. We know it's a challenging time right now, but here's the upside. You can tune into church from the comfort of your own bed in your own bacon-stained pajamas. Don't believe me? That's what I'm doing right now. Jokes aside, the important thing is that God wants to speak to you today. Whether you're in the living room or the laundry room, He has a plan. We have a service today that's going to encourage you and give you some tools to get through this pandemic with flying colors. So stay tuned for some meaningful worship and a great message by Pastor Gord. No matter how you're feeling today, we bet you'll feel even better by the end of the service. If you have any questions, please reach out to us on our Facebook page, our website, or through email. We want to hear from you and how God is speaking into your life today.
I have a question for you. Do you consider yourself a good person? I'm sure you do. Most of us, honestly, would say, yeah, I'm a good person. I guess we could philosophize about what good actually means, but let's not go there today. We all have variations of what good actually looks like. Someone might say, well, I didn't cheat on my girlfriend today, I didn't murder anyone today, didn't steal from anyone, but those are pretty low standards. Why don't we raise the bar a little bit? Did you obey the law today? Did you help somebody out today? Did you follow the golden rule to love your neighbor as you love yourself? Were you kind to somebody? Okay, now we're getting somewhere. When it comes to connecting with God, how good do you have to be to connect with God? Well, I want to talk to you about that today. And if you're not a follower of Christ, you don't go to church, but you're here, you've landed on this program, stay tuned because I want to speak to you about how you can connect with God. Now, if you are a Christian, maybe a regular attender at Richfield, stay tuned because I want to tell you at the same time how you can go deeper in your relationship with God. Hi everyone, my name is Gord Ponak and I'm the lead pastor at Richfield Christian Fellowship. I'm so glad that you've joined us on this broadcast today. I want you to know that God wants to touch your life today. He wants to speak to you. He wants to reveal new things to you. So I encourage you to stay tuned, keep your eyes and ears open. God is in the house, He's in your house, and He's going to touch your life today.
but you clothed yourself with frail humanity. You did not wait for me to cry out to you, but you let me hear your voice calling me, and I'm forever grateful to you. And I'm forever grateful for the cross. I'm forever grateful to you that you came to seek and save the lost. You did not wait for me to draw near to you, but you clothed yourself with frail humanity. You did not wait for me to cry out to you, but you let me hear your voice calling me, and I'm forever grateful to you. And I'm forever grateful for the cross. I'm forever grateful to you that you came to seek and save the lost. And I'm forever grateful to you. And I'm forever grateful for the cross. I'm forever grateful to you that you came to seek and save the lost. And I'm forever grateful to you. And I'm forever grateful for the cross. And I'm forever grateful to you that you came to seek and save the lost. Oh, we praise the Lord. We praise your name. Oh, we worship you. We praise you.
Does being a good person get you closer or deeper to God? I've been a Christian for 40 years, and I have lived what anybody would consider a pretty good life. I mean, not really breaking the law, except for maybe a few speeding and parking tickets, being kind, a gentle person, being loving, mostly selfless. You probably have been like this too. But being good hasn't gotten me to where I want to be with God. I want the next level change. I want to go deeper with God. And just being good and doing good things and acting in good ways isn't getting me where I want to be. I desire to go deeper. Depth requires sacrifice. It requires surrender. Just like digging requires sweat equity, You have to exert effort to get to that next level of depth. It may cost you time, convenience, probably comfort, maybe even cash, and it will certainly cost us our complacency. But just look at the farmer who gets up at the dawn every day to feed his livestock 7 days a week. Feed that which brings you a profit, and in due time you will reap a harvest. But it doesn't happen overnight. The calf doesn't get fattened in a day or even a week. The sower would love to see the seed grow a lot quicker than it does. The investor has a long-term plan with mutual funds. But if we invest continually, we will see the success that we want to. So let me ask you, when it comes to knowing God, who He is and what He's about, do you want success? The place of depth is where we learn and see and encounter new things. When it comes to God, the place of depth spiritually allows us to see more and understand more about His character and His nature, things that we had not previously known or seen. We understand more about His plans and His purposes for us. I had a chance to talk to my friend Damien this past week, and he went for his first scuba diving encounter recently, and I found the conversation to be kind of insightful.
So I want to ask you, you took a recent trip to Belize, and you did something you've been wanting to do for a long time. Tell me a little bit about it. What was the process you had to go through to learn scuba diving?
You have to start with what they call a confined water dive or a pool dive. And so in Belize, the pool dive that we did was actually in a reef. It was just within like 6 or 7 feet of water. And then we actually went for the first day, it was videos and stuff that we did. The second day, we actually went out for some dives. And that's when you start to go through the basics of, what's a scuba tank? How do you put it together? All that kind of stuff. And then, we went out to this reef, and it was so fun because I was able to, you see in the movies, everybody always, like they sit on the edge of the boat and they just pitch back and, they just roll back into the water.
Yeah.
And
cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, well, that's great. I remember last time we talked, you were telling me something about learning buoyancy. Tell me what's that about?
So when you're diving, there's we have what we call buoyancy. So buoyancy, there's either positive buoyancy where you float, negative buoyancy when you sink, or there's neutral buoyancy. And so when you're diving, that's where you're introduced to neutral buoyancy. And so when you're neutrally buoyant, you can be trim. And if you're trim, that means you're putting the least amount of effort into diving. And it's really, as I understand, it's a mark of a good diver, somebody that can control their buoyancy super well. And it's one of the most fun things because you're literally it's like you're weightless. You're just suspended underwater.
Yeah.
Like you don't go up, you don't go down, you're just kind of like taking everything in, and it's just a different world.
So, how come more experienced divers can go deeper than you can as a novice?
So certain people are going to equalize faster and other people aren't. Some people, they just physically can't, and other people, they can, but it takes a lot of time. That's me. If we've never gone diving before, we've experienced, our whole life it being, either at sea level or, 1,200, 2,000 meters above sea level, whatever it is.
Yep.
And so I think Calgary is probably like 12 or 1,300 meters above sea level. And so I'm used to that. So when I go below the surface of the water, my body's not used to that, and it takes getting accustomed to it.
Okay.
So the diving lifters and the people that have grown up in Belize and these areas, for them, they can go down to 100 feet, 130 feet in a couple of minutes.
Right.
Me, honestly, it takes me like 10 minutes to get that deep, just because the equalizing takes so long. And I think over time, the more and more dives I do, the better accustomed my body will get to it.
Right. What did you love about it?
It's another world.
Yeah.
It's so cool. When you're when you're walking through the forest, you see squirrels and birds and maybe even deer and things like that. And anytime you come up to these animals, especially if they catch your scent, they run away. But with diving, it's different. So once you're neutrally buoyant and you're swimming through a reef, it's serene. Like, it is probably one of the most peaceful, serene experiences I've ever had in my life. It's beautiful down there. There's so many different colors of fish and coral, and like, it's just a different world as far as what you get to see. But what amazed me was I'd be literally on top, like as close as I am to my phone, on top of like a small school of fish, and they'd just be darting around like the same way you would see like squirrels or chipmunks chase each other around, or birds chase each other around in the air. The fish do the same thing. But when you're diving, they don't notice you. So you're just kind of like neutrally buoyant, really small little fin kicks, just kind of doing your thing. In that trim position, you're just watching. And these animals, they don't even care. My buddy, he finally gets my attention because I kind of turn around, and he's just like, look, there's a shark. And just like 10 feet to my right side, I saw a shark. And, you know, I've had buddies and people say, like, weren't you scared? And honestly, like, it didn't even occur to me to be scared. Like, in my regular, I was like, oh, cool. It's like one of the most graceful things. Like, the shark is just swimming by, doing his own thing. Our dive masters even said before we started the dive, like, if a shark comes to check you out, they're like, might swim around you. Just let him do his thing, but he'll move on. And I'm like, okay. But I didn't even feel scared. It was just like, I got to see one of the most incredible looking creatures ever. It was a reef shark, the specific kind of shark I saw.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and then I got to see sea turtles. So, like, the same way a deer will graze in a field or graze on the grass,
Yeah.
sea turtles graze on seagrass on the seafloor.
Wow.
So cool.
So cool.
In scuba diving, the deeper you go, the more you're going to see that you cannot see from the surface. You'll see a whole different world down there that you can't see floating from a boat on the surface of the water. But nobody can just plunge 100 feet into the depths of the ocean, not on their own. They need some kind of apparatus, some kind of gear that helps them stay viable and keeps them safe down there. In the Old Testament, thousands of years ago, there was a man named Isaiah. He was a prophet. And Isaiah had this incredible vision of God, his character, his nature. He saw God high and lifted up. And he saw God sitting on his throne in heaven. And the angels were all around him, and they were saying, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. And so incredible was this vision for Isaiah, it just wrecked him. And he said, woe to me. I'm a man of unclean lips. And he just felt wrecked by the whole situation. It was too much for him to handle. Another prophet in the Old Testament named Moses, he also lived thousands of years ago. And in Exodus chapter 33, we read him asking God to show him, Moses, his glory. And it says this, Moses said, I pray, show me your glory. And God said, I will make all of my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you. This was in a very intense moment. I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. He said, you cannot see my face, for no man can see me and live. Then the Lord said, indeed, there is a place by me. You must stand on the rock. While my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock and will cover you with my hand while I pass by. Then I will take away my hand, and you will see my back, but you may not see my face. Incredible. An incredible vision encounter that Moses had. And what's amazing is that now God has granted access for you and I to go directly to him, to explore the depths that are in God. And he did this through Jesus Christ. By Christ's sacrifice for you and I on the cross, we have been enabled to go and connect with God, to explore him. Jesus is our diving apparatus, and he allows us to go without fear of death and explore the depths of God. Listen, when I think of sacrifice, when I think of surrender, I can't help but think of the Old Testament book, Ruth. Now, in this story, we see such an incredible act of selflessness and dedication, and a story of giving up in order to get. Although when Ruth was giving up, she didn't know what she was going to get. The story goes that Naomi had 2 sons, and they were both married. Well, the two sons died, and so the two daughters-in-laws were left without husbands. So Naomi says to them, go back to your people, go back to your lands. I'm older, I don't have any more sons. Just go back and live your lives. I'm going to go back to my people. I'm going to go back to my land. And so the daughters-in-law, they begin to go, but Ruth turns around and says, no, I don't want to leave you. And listen to what she says here in chapter 1 of her book. Do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from following you. For wherever you go, I will go, and wherever you stay, I will stay. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do this to me, and worse, if anything but death separates you and me. Wow, what kind of commitment is that? That Ruth would not go back to her comforts, not go back to her own people, her own relatives and family, but that she would choose to give that all up, to sacrifice it in order to stay true to her mother-in-law and be with her and help her and assist her, knowing that she was a widow and that she had nothing of her own. So Ruth goes back to watch over Naomi, to live with her and take care of her. And in the end, Ruth ends up getting married. It's a great story. She ends up being provided for, and she becomes part of this important family that actually ends up being the bloodline of Jesus Christ. Well, in this season that we're in, one of the challenges that my family has faced is that gymnastics has also closed down, like pretty much everything else, all other recreational sports and the competitions. And my daughter was big into it. She was spending plus 20 hours a week involved in it. And every day after work, I would go and pick her up. And I would say, how did it go today? And sometimes she would say, went great, I learned a new skill, I really did well today. Other days she'd be discouraged because it seemed like skills that she had known for a long time, she was having troubles with. The thing is that consistency goes a long way. And prayer life is the same, and getting to know God is the same. It requires consistency on our part. You can't go away from something that you've practiced for a long time, spend extended periods of time away from it, and then come back and figure that you can just pick up where you left off. In some instances, prayer is like getting back on a bike again and just riding. But in other ways, to get to that depth, that level again, it takes some time. We need to be consistent, and that's the only way it can happen. You know what? When I think of how God looks at us when we're praying, he looks at our effort, and he's pleased with it. And I say that because when I think of Ashley, my daughter, doing gymnastics, I mean, she invested time and effort. And as she did consistently, Monday to Friday, week after week, month after month, her skills grew to the point where at competitions, she would finish better and better, and sometimes on the podium. And I was always proud of her, but not because she got first, second, or third place, or wherever she placed. I was proud of her for her effort, her work ethic, that she would continually try and strive to be better. And I think God looks at us that way when we're putting that time and that effort in. We recently, as a church, we went through the book of Daniel, and we took some of the highlights more focused on Daniel the prophet. And we learned that at one point, Daniel was called by the angel highly esteemed. He said, God values you. God highly esteems you. When you started praying, things started happening in the supernatural. And I think that Daniel was highly esteemed. Daniel was valuable because he prayed 3 times a day. Now, it wasn't regimented. It wasn't in the law of the Old Testament that he had to pray 3 times a day. Daniel went after God. He was hungry for God, and he recognized he needed God, and he was humble before God. And it drove him to pray 3 times a day. And because of that, Daniel saw the success, not just through his prayer life, but in all facets of his life. He became successful in the kingdom that he served in. And I'm convinced that it was because he prayed 3 times a day. What's waiting for you and I on the other side of consistent prayer? What kind of depth are we going to explore? Where are we going to find ourselves? How much more are we going to know the God who is powerful and mighty, and the God who loves us and is full of grace and mercy? That's my passion, and I trust it's yours too. So how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to get to know God? How much are you willing to sacrifice and go for it? Yes, I'm setting you up for a challenge here because I believe it's important, and I think it's going to yield results that we all want. So if you're not a follower of Christ and you're watching this and you're interested in getting to know God, but you don't know how to do that, I want to challenge you for the next 7 days to pray. Just pray once a day. Pray 5 or 10 minutes. I know it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel like you're talking to the walls maybe, but trust me, God is listening and he wants to connect with you. He really does. So if you don't know how to pray, I'm going to put a couple links in the notes below. And these are prayers that you can pray. And you don't have to use those words, but you can if you want. But start somewhere. If you've been a Christian a long time, you already know how to pray. You already do pray. But I want to encourage you to do what I'm going to do. And I'm going to follow Daniel's example. 3 times a day for the next 7 days. I'm going to take time to pray morning, noon, and night. And I want to put a challenge out to you to do the same thing. This is the way we're going to grow deeper. Now, are we always going to feel like we've touched heaven? Or are we always going to feel like, we've changed everything on the face of the earth or even in our world? No, we're not. Sometimes we're going to get distracted by the smell or the sound of something or our long to-do list or whatever. But keep at it. Consistency. Put in the effort. Put in the sacrifice. It's how we get deeper. So won't you join me in the 7-day challenge? If you will, I want you to give me a like. I want you to give me some kind of feedback and let me know in the notes that you are going to take on this challenge for the next 7 days. You're going to go for it.
See him there, the great I am, a crown of thorns upon his head, the Father's heart displayed for us. Oh God, we thank you for the cross. Lifted up on Calvary's hill, we cursed your name, and even still you bore our shame and paid the cost. Oh God, we thank you for the cross. Behold, bright as the sun, will bow before the King of Kings, oh God, forever.